All right.
I'm in.
Okay. Let me keep bringing people in.
I'm back.
I'm back.
Hi, guys.
Hi, welcome back.
Hi.
We had a good time talking
I
amongst
guess that was
ourselves.
a break. Oh, man. What a bummer. I hope people get back in. Sign in. Oh, gosh. I have to bring up the whole PDI again, I believe. Okay. Admit. Oh. Admit. Okay. There we go. Losing you. Okay. I went ahead and emailed you immediately, but I didn't know if you got it where I said, oh, my Wi-Fi is down. Okay, so I have heard of this nightmare. Other people have had it. I always been like, oh no, I'm fine. I've never had my class go down, and here I am. You guys are experiencing my first class down. At least now I know to warn everyone at the beginning that if anything like this were to happen, just to hang out and you know. So tell me your experience. Did it just say cancel? Did I drop out? Did the whole thing close? What happened to you? Just so I know.
We were all here and you went bye-bye.
But you stayed and I
Yeah.
just wasn't there. So the class stayed going. That's interesting. That the
And
class can stay going even if I'm not here. Huh.
Linda was named as the host.
Oh,
That's
so
weird.
someone
Linda's
got
name. So maybe you transferred it?
no.
Oh, I feel so important.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher.
That is so cool. And then suddenly I just said, oh, hi, and appeared again. Is that what happened?
No.
We
had
all
to-
logged off.
Was that?
Someone got the message, and so we all left the meeting.
Oh, okay. Because you're all appearing again. So someone checked their message and said that. I'm wondering now what would have happened had you stayed on if I had just connected again and I would have just appeared again.
I think so. I bet.
It might have just
So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna test this, not with you guys, but I'm gonna have a little fake class. I'm gonna drop my Wi-Fi and connect again and have others in it and tell me what happens, because now I need to know, because I was like, what is happening to them, right? How do I communicate with them? All right, so not everyone's back, but hopefully they'll find their way back.
I think that once Linda had signed off, then everybody was dropped.
Yeah.
Wow, I was in such control and didn't even know it.
Right.
I was the queen. I was the queen of the world for like a minute and a half.
Right.
Yay.
I love that.
Here's my crown.
Lisa, thanks for holding on for it until it came crumbling down. All right,
Yeah.
so hopefully everyone reconnects. I can't do anything other than hope people show up again. We're down 4 people. But anyway.
Deanna,
Yeah.
Deanna, if you had just logged back in, I think that you would have
Probably
been
would
there.
have,
Yeah, would have been okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, we shall see. I will test it out, and next time I'll know what'll happen if I had logged back in. But at this point, I just need to hope that that people are somehow gonna show back up in there. So, all right. Okay, so I'm gonna talk with you guys for a second while I go and check on the other screen whether I still have my VDI, because that probably all dropped as well. Yeah, so I need to reconnect. Okay, meanwhile, go ahead and you know, play around in your Illustrator. I need to open this up again. And wow, if you want to go out and take take 2 minutes, take 3 minutes, I need to set up my Illustrator again. And bring down my files again, so unless you have questions, then take a little break and be back in a few minutes. When you hear my voice again, my dual set tones, you can show up again. Meanwhile, I need to reconnect. VM view. And oh, well, that's so nice. Guess what? Much easier. I connected onto VMView again and everything is sitting there just waiting for me.
That's great.
Kathy is coming back. Yay. One more person. All right. And I can share my screen again and I am still in the same place I was at. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Now, I sent people off on a little break. So I'm going to stop this sharing. How about we all take 5 minutes in case you didn't take it, and I don't want to take much longer, but just since I did say it, tell some people to head off for 5 minutes. I'm going to go and email the 3 people who haven't shown up. So this is break time, but a short little 5-minute break time. Okay, so who's not here? No. Okay. Okay.
Are we on a break?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I
I
couldn't.
gave a 5-minute break. I normally stop my video, but yeah, just in case someone's trying to come in or whatever, I stayed on. But yeah, 5 minutes while I.
Okay, that's good. I gotta take my dogs out. I'll be right back.
Yeah. All right. I can see this guy's video now.
Get those specs from France. They will in time for a trip downtown this afternoon, and we do that.
Okay. All right. Are we back?
Yep.
I'm going to start calling out. Oh, Joan, trying to get back in. I hope she still was in the way. I don't know if I got her. There you go. Okay. Thanks, Steve. I do the whole typing thing a lot myself too when I'm not paying attention. All right. Yay, we're down to only 2 people that we are missing, so hopefully they're going to still try to get in. But after that technical snafu and all, let's continue. That was an interesting break, right? So, all right. So for those of you who showed up when we were in the middle of the break, I was reconnecting and hopefully you didn't drop. So now I'm sharing my screen again. Is everyone seeing it? Is everything good? All right, I'm not hearing it, but okay. There we go. Clear up, perfect. All right, so we were in the middle of talking about the why we have artboards, right? And so basically so that you can have, every time you create a new file, you have to import, if you want to use the same colors, the same materials and everything. So this gives us a chance to have many related elements in one same file. And a better example than this would be, for example, say that you created a label for a type of jam that you make, but you make 10 types of jam or marmalades or whatever. And each one is the same label, but you have a different name of the kind of jam or color of a different fruit, but you have basically the same label. So then you can have that same label and sell 10 different artboards, but you just change the type of jam and whatnot, but it's one file with basically all the same material. Does that make sense? If someone has a yay or nay in particular.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So who was asking originally the question? I lost track, I think. Linda? No. Who had asked the original question?
I thought it was Kathy, and I think she's out
It was
walking her dogs.
Yeah, the person who's not here. Yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
well. Thank you for having the memory of that. I got all flustered with what happened and lost track. Okay. So, but that's a great question for everyone to know the answer to. So, so right now, what I'm going to do is, if we have all of our different artboards here that that we don't or do need, if we do need them, we keep them. If we don't need them, I just wanted to, we can get rid of them, and we can get rid of them actually, like I showed you before, with the artboard, selecting it. Or once you leave the artboard tool, because say that I select it with the artboard tool and get rid of it, that's fine. But what if I'm not in the artboard tool anymore? If I go back to my V or selection tool and I still have some artboards that I don't want, then I can go back to the artboards panel, and then I can click on the artboard that I don't want and hit this little trash can. And again, hit that little trash can, and then hit that little trash can, and then I'm left just with the artboards that I want. So that's just.
Tiana, I have a question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My 3 little squares up on the upper left-hand corner, the white artboard disappeared around it.
Okay. So
it's floating out in space, and it's.
Yeah. So let me explain. And thanks for saying that, because when you have your artboard tool, maybe by mistake you had it selected or something like that, and then when you hit delete, it disappeared. And see how.
Like that. Yeah.
So it's a great example. So everyone turn on your artboard tool again and do that so that we can see what I mean. But basically what's happened, and then when I leave the artboard tool, I'm back to my selection tool, and now I have one artboard and this stuff that's floating around, right? So
Right.
the other reason someone said, why do you need things in an artboard? Is because these things now that don't have an artboard, they're not printable. So if I now want to create this file and print it, I can only print what's inside of an artboard. In fact, if I had a box, and I'm going to just duplicate this for a minute here, and if I had an extra box over here that I were to put right there, and if I were to try to print this whole thing would print with just this little bit of green over there. Whatever's on outside of the artboard doesn't really exist as a file. It's great to have things around, like when you're making a collage or something, you have a little bit of stuff around the table, and then you're trying one, you're trying another, but the final piece is what's on your canvas or whatever your piece of board that you're using. So this stuff now either is just color samples for me to use in here, or I need to create an artboard around it again, and that's fine. I can go and click on the artboard tool again and just make an artboard tool that surrounds it, and
Easy.
that is now on an artboard. So it's not like it needs to get put on or off or whatever. It is, there it is now. That is the artboard for it, okay?
Thank you.
You can modify it or you can change it. Or sometimes you're designing something and you go, oh, now I need a bit more space. I thought I would need that, but actually I need to go up a little bit bigger like that, because I'm gonna, oh, that's making a new one, sorry. You decide that you need to make it a little bit bigger because you're gonna put 3 more of these little objects, then you make it bigger, and now you keep making more of these objects, okay? So that's the whole point of artboards. Now let's start making new things in these artboards. The shapes that I showed you how to do were just the rectangles, but if you had a chance to do the videos, the video that I asked you to watch would show you a bunch of other shapes, right? And just to see if you have any memory, what other shapes are considered those basic shapes? What kind of shapes can you create?
Lips.
Lines and stars and polygons, some
Yeah.
polygons.
So how do you access them? Over here in the same tool that we were making rectangles, if you click and hold, well, we discover that there's rectangles, there's rounded rectangles, ellipse, polygon, star, and flare tool. Avoid the flare tool. The flare tool does not give us shapes. I have no idea why it's here. It's a whole different effect, and it should not be there. And of course, everyone's gonna go, oh, come on, and they're gonna go click on it. So if you're gonna go do that, this is what's gonna happen, and it's gonna be a problem because you're gonna have this weird thing show up like that, right? So my recommendation is that you don't do it. But if you did make one and something like this happened, then go ahead and say Control Z to get rid of that. And then avoid it, because it is not a shape like the rest of the shapes, and we're gonna just, for now, not include it in the basic set of shapes. But these are the basic set of shapes. They're called closed shapes. The other tools that you learn to draw with are the line tool, and they were line, arc, spiral, and rectangular, and polar grid tool. Okay, so those are all the preset shapes for us. Once you choose one, say I chose a star tool, then I don't see the rectangle anymore. I will see the shape of the star. So you need to recognize them, because if you're looking for the rectangle, well, now it looks like a star. And it won't look like a rectangle until I click there and choose the rectangle again, okay? You need to click and hold your mouse down, and then you get to see how you choose another tool. And that's the shape that'll show up there. Okay, so now I do want us to have a new place to draw in here. So I am going to make an actual new artboard, but I'm going to do it with the artboard palette. Now, if you already have another artboard out there, that's fine. But since I deleted all of mine, I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus sign, and I'm just going to get an artboard like the last one that I created. And see how that's the last one that I created? So when I click down there, the shape came out identical to the last one that I created, as opposed to the first time we did is that it came out the size of the second one. Okay, so you can just go up to that artboard tool if you want to make bigger and expand it to have it be bigger again, or play around with it. So basically for artboards, we just go back and forth between the tool or the actual palette and deciding what we're going to do. Okay, so now in this new artboard, I want us to start making a couple of different shapes as a little bit of review for those of you who saw the videos and practiced it, and new for people who didn't. And I'm going to choose the star tool.
Okay.
So now I want to show you guys that whatever shape, let me start with something simpler. Let me start with the ellipse tool. Whenever you choose a shape, remember that there's two ways to create a shape. What are the two ways? Do you remember?
The closed shapes or the line shapes.
Yes, exactly. You can either have, actually, no, that's not what I was looking for. Say that again. I said yes, and then I went, wait, that was not the answer. What did you answer?
I said you could have the closed shapes that were
Yeah.
confined or the line shapes.
Exactly. You said that, and I said yes, and although that is true, that was not the question I asked, and that's why I went backwards and went, wait, what did you say that I said yes to? Yes, you can, depending on any shape you choose, is the tool that you're going to, is the shape you're going to be making. But once you choose that tool, so right now I chose the ellipse, okay? Now, depending on what I do next here, I can either create it in an exact size and shape that I want, or I can draw it and look until I see what I want. And what is it that has to happen with my mouse for either of these two things to happen with the same tool in hand? Does anyone remember?
Click and drag.
Click and drag.
Yeah, either you click or you click and drag. And that's true of just about every tool in Illustrator and in Photoshop. What happens is different if you click or if you click and drag. So if I were to now just click, what shows up is something that is asking me what size do I want my shape to be. So if right now I give it a 2" by 2", I'm going to make a perfect circle. I say okay, and there's my perfect circle. If instead I click and drag, then I have, until I let go of my mouse, I have a chance to keep adapting the shape of this circle, and I can do it by eye. Okay, that's kind of good enough, or that's kind of good enough. And when I let go of my mouse, boom, that's the size and shape my circle is going to have. Okay, so once again, I either simply click and measure out. Now notice that the last the shape, the number that's showing up here when I click is the size of the last one I made. So if I were to say okay, I would get another of the exact same thing that I had made. So if I click and change that to say 3 by 7, and I say okay, then I get a totally new one. Okay, I'm going to backtrack a bit by deleting. So, but if I now were to click again, that one again would say 3 by 7. So always your tools stay in the last mode that you made them happen. So now I'll just keep making many 3 by 7 shapes until I change that shape, or until I draw another one out. And now I'm going to draw one that's like yay big. And when I now click, it's going to tell me it needs to be an 8 by 8. Okay, just wanted to have, so go ahead and do that. Draw one just by looking at it, and then draw another one by clicking and choosing the size of it, and then play around with the different shapes that show up based on whether you draw one with a click and drag or whether you click to make it by size. While you're doing that, any questions?
Once you get the shape, how does it keep it? I mean, I got the shape here, but it's not. Oh, okay, I got it. Okay.
Once you let go of your mouse, then it settles. Is that what you mean? Like you're dragging, and then you just let go of your mouse, then that shape is what it is. Now, if you didn't like the shape, say that you go, oh, it needed to be more circle or more oval or more long, I can't go and, change it. Look at my screen. I mean, I don't know if you guys are looking at my screen. I just made it, and my tool is this ellipse tool. So if I go grab, because I want to move it around, I can't do that. I'm trying to grab this one to move it out of the way, and all I keep making is what? More circle. Because this is not my grab tool. while I'm making a shape, only the shape that I'm just making can I still work with. But other than that, I'm going to keep making circles until, you know, I figure out that something's wrong. If I'm trying to move these around, I have to leave this shape, this tool, and go back to which tool?
The selected tool.
My selection tool, my black selection tool, which the shortcut for it is the V tool, right? So I go back to the selection tool, and now I can grab and move and shift and change shape, okay? So this is the main point. Oh, look at that. I'm kind of almost making a paw or something like that, right? So I'm deleting the ones I don't want.
Yeah.
And I'm by just chance, I'm making a little bit of a bear paw. Okay, so here's the thing. When I have my selection tool, I move them around, but they're keeping that same stacking order as I had before, remember, because nothing changes in second order unless I change them at the layers level. Now, what's the problem? They all are coming out in whatever shape I made them. And what if I want this one to be long and thin? If I've already made it, then with the selection tool, I can grab those handles and pull it down or make it wider or skinnier. But for the most part, it's still an ellipse of one kind or another. Like if I go to the top corner, I do both wide and thin and height at the same time. But it doesn't suddenly turn into a rectangle or into a star. The bounding box and the black selection tool allow us to make distortions, if you want, making things wider and or taller. So if this would be a photograph, that would be terrible, right? But if it's just a shape, then that's fine. That's what the black selection tool is. Now, we're going to head over to the white selection tool a little bit today too, and then you'll see the difference between the white and the black one. But for now, that's all we know. That once you make it, you can just keep adapting it with the black selection tool, all right? And if you don't want any more, then you hit and the black space and it disappears. Now, in this case, if I were to print this, all these four would print, and then this would only print a piece of it, and this would only print that piece of it. Okay, remember, because of the artboard. So say that I wanted all of this to show up in my art, then I would have to go and say, well, I guess I either need to make my shape smaller, or I can go back to the artboard and make my artboard bigger and make all this shape fill into my artboard. Okay. So those are kind of the different ways to handle it. Now, if you have a specific size that things need to be, then you can't just willy-nilly change your artboard, right? But if you don't, then you can just change your artboard and keep drawing or designing whichever way you want.
Yeah, no, I'm having trouble. It seems like all those little dots keep coming around, but then when I want to make another shape, it doesn't. I'm having
a different
make a second shape.
Yeah. So are you back in your ellipse tool, or did you move back to your V or selection tool?
No, I'm on my ellipse tool.
Okay. If you're in your ellipse tool,
do I have to push shift or?
No. If you are still in your ellipse tool, you should be able to go anywhere and just click and drag and make another shape.
Yeah. Okay, now it's doing it. Okay. I don't know why it wasn't doing it. And then when I want to get out of that, I don't want to make any more shapes. How do I get out of that?
If you're done with making shapes and you want to move out of that, what should we all do?
Selection, is that it?
Yeah. I'm trying to keep talking as if this was a real class where I get you guys to speak up, and it's a bit hard, I know, because you don't all have your sounds on. If you can have your sounds on, that's great. If you don't, that's fine. But if anyone is able to just kind of answer back, it helps, because one thing I learned, and this is going to be a bit different in this class, but when people just hear things, they learn it at one level. But when you also say it back, you learn it at another level. So even if you say it to yourself in silence, if I tell you, what do you need to do? And you just think selection tool, is different than if you say selection tool, then you begin to get accustomed to talking about the selection tool. You know what I mean? So I don't have to hear your answer back, But I'd like you guys, if you have your sound on, I will hear it, but if not, to just kind of practice. Oh, selection. Oh, direct select. Oh, artboard tool. Start saying the words, because then they kind of register in your brain in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
So now,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes.
So now the answer is that when you're done making rectangles, ellipses, or whatever you're making, you have to leave that tool and go back to your V or black or selection tool, okay? Now, one thing I forgot to say is that, yes, you can distort the shape wide and height and width, but you can also rotate it. So just so you remember, this little kind of antenna thingy that pops up, if you click on that, oh, sorry, that's in a different, let me show you what I'm gonna go at. You can rotate it by putting your mouse at the edge, not see, the corner here makes it bigger or smaller, width and height at the same time. But if I hover a little bit outside of that, so outside of that corner, so that's a bit too far, that's a bit too close, I have to wait and hover until I see a little double-headed curve. Then I click and drag, and now I can rotate my shape. Now this won't be so obvious if you're using a perfect circle, so go ahead and practice this with a non-perfect circle, with an oval, so that you can see it happening. So again, move a bit past that corner. The double-headed arrow is not what we want. We want the curved double-headed arrow, and then you can click and drag, and then you get to rotate the shape. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you is that when you have a circle, there's this little kind of like little antenna thingy that shows up there. See that?
Yeah.
That is an interesting little addition to the ovals, which if you click on and you pull, suddenly you have changed the shape. You have actually created a wedge, like a little Pac-Man, okay? And then you take this one and you can make it open a little bit bigger. Now this is only something that's happening in this case from the bounding box. It's the only situation in which, with the black selection tool, you can actually change the actual shape into something other than an oval. Does that make sense? Or other than whatever shape. If my shape was a star, it would only be a star unless I use a different tool. If it were a rectangle, it's only a rectangle. But when you have that little tiny antenna and you use it, if you now put them together again, it turns back into a circle. So that's like a really special tool that only exists for this situation. Okay?
Yes.
So anyway, go ahead and cut into your shape using these little, I don't know the name of it, but you know, I call it the little antenna thingy that sticks out, so that you can change the shape of that tool and cut a wedge into it. But it's not like you have many more options with that tool. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do otherwise. You need 2 other tools to do this. So this is a quick way to do it if you need to. You can go all the way around and move it to the point that you end up with just a little piece of that shape. Okay? Is there a question about this?
Nope, all good.
Okay, go ahead and try it out and move it around. And then when I click away, there it is. That's the shape that you're left with, which would be a shape that wouldn't be that easy to necessarily create. Now, whether you want that shape or not, that's different. But right now, I just wanted to show you what that tool did.
Where's the antenna tool? Where is it though? Show me where.
When you select it, and it has to have started like this as a circle of, because then
Oh, I see. Okay.
it kind of sticks out. Now, in this case, it's not a circle, but the antennas are there. And you grab, now they're one at each end. There's one, and this is an, I don't know what to call it. I should look at the name of it because antenna always sounds so weird. That little thing that sticks out from the bounding box, right? I think the first time I saw it, it was sticking out the top and it kind of looked like this little, you know, antennas on a little creature. And then I rotate it from the corners, okay? So
I don't see my antenna. I don't see the antenna on it once I make a bounding box.
So it's a circle that you're clicking on?
No, I'm doing a star.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. You have to be on the ellipse. Okay.
Oh, you have to be in ellipse. Okay.
Yeah, this is something that exists for the ellipse. It does not
I see.
exist for the
Okay.
other shapes.
I
Okay.
get it. Uh-huh.
All right. So now, what if though And I'm going to go ahead now and get rid of one of these big ones because I want to have a bit more space. Okay. I'm going to go back in here to have a bit more empty space. So here's a lot of ellipses. Now I'm going to go and create a rectangle like before, like we did last week. And when I first draw it, notice that all of these shapes are coming out the same color and this with the same color. And what's the black thing called? It's a, does anyone remember?
Bounding box?
No, the bounding box are those handles and stuff.
Oh,
But the black stays there around the green. So anyone remember what this black thing is called?
Is it just a border?
Okay, in Illustrator it has another name. It is a border and it kind of looks like an outline, but that's not the technical name of this thing. Does anyone remember the technical name of this thing?
Stroke.
It's a stroke, exactly. And I need you to know that only because if you try to do something to change that, you will have to go look for the stroke tool, okay? And that's why it's good to know if you want the name of it. So if I now want to change the stroke or the color, I am stuck with the fact that every new thing I create comes out with that black stroke, which if I read up here, it's telling me the 7-point stroke, that's the width of it. And this is the, what's the green called? If the black is a stroke, what's the green thing called?
Bill.
It's the fill, okay? So the stroke and the fill are the things that we are managing to come out. We don't do anything. They're coming out exactly as, what is it? What is this? Why is it coming out? This tone of green and this black.
Because you put a color picker color on it, in it.
No, I didn't do anything. I just started drawing circles and they came out.
Because in the color, but in the color box, it shows us green.
And it shows us that green and that stroke because that's the one that was last made.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand. The only thing I'm trying to really get right now is that the reason that's there is because whoever made this document, that's the last box they made and that's what they chose. So my tools now, no matter what shape I make, comes out that exact same way. So remember, anything that happens in Illustrator happens a certain way because that's the way it was in the last time, right? So now if I want to change this, select it and change it. I'm going to go up here and click on this little arrow and change it to a different fill. And then I'm going to go over to the stroke and change it to maybe a red stroke. Okay. So now I have changed this. Now I go and make another rectangle and what's going to happen? The next rectangle will come out again and keep repeating because that's the last settings it had, right? Because now it's those settings stick. And if I close this program and save it and open it up next week and start drawing a rectangle, it'll have kept the fill as yellow and the stroke as red 7 points. So the only way to change them is by actively changing them to something else, okay? So now go ahead and change your properties, and that's what these things are. They're the properties and they are called, does anyone remember the other technical name of what a property is? It's the, this is a technical name that you probably don't remember, but in case someone did, we call them the attributes or the appearance. But when we go over here to the, do I have the Essentials Classic palette on? Yeah, we said Essentials Classic, okay. So here, down here, we see the appearance panel, the attributes panel. It depends, people will call it different things. And then that you see the fill and the stroke, okay? And then over here you see the stroke and the fill, and here you see it again, the fill and the stroke. So there's like 3 times cube in your toolbar on the left, at the top on your control panel, or on the right in your windows. And all those 3 places you're being able to change or see the fill and the stroke. You get that?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, oh yeah?
Can I duplicate a figure and can I duplicate an artboard to have exactly the same one?
Yes, you can. You can definitely duplicate. So right now, grab any of the shapes that you've been making, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the basic way, which I don't use in Illustrator, but the basic way that you can duplicate anything in the world of computerdom, no matter what program you're in, usually is just copy paste, right? So you can copy paste. But as much as you can copy paste, there's a better way, because copy paste, you either have to go all the way up and say file, copy, edit, file, paste, or edit, copy, edit, paste, or you use the shortcuts, Command C, Command V. But I'm going to show you a much better way in Illustrator to copy something. So select a shape of any type and kind, and then hold down your Alt or Option key. Alt for PC users or VDI PC users, and Option for Mac users. And look at my arrows. See how now my arrow turned into 2 arrows? So then I click and drag, and out came a copy.
Okay.
I'm going to do that again. Select the shape, hold down your Alt or Option key, and then drag, and out comes another of the same exact shape. Can you all try that? Select the shape,
Yes.
hold down the Option, drag, and here's a perfect exact copy. Okay? Now, what if you want to copy a bunch of them? So how do you select more than one thing? Because when I go select this thing, and then I go select this thing, that selection disappeared. And then I go select this thing, that selection disappeared, right?
Mhm.
So in order to select more than one thing, the tried and true method in the world of computers again is you hold down your Shift key, then you click on the next one, then on the next one, then on the next one. And now see how the bounding box kind of gets bigger? So when again, I'm going to click away to disappear that. I'm going to click on one. Then I hold down the Shift and click on the next. And the interesting thing is I don't have now 2 bounding boxes. I have 1 bounding box that got bigger. Then I hold down Shift and I grab 1 more. See how the bounding box keeps getting bigger to include all the different shapes that I'm using? So now that I've included all those shapes and I have 1 bounding box, no matter where I click on the shapes, okay? If I click down here, it doesn't work. It disappears. You need to click on a shape. So no matter which, but on a shape, then I can move all 3 at the same time. But remember, when you have all 3 selected, if you select now grow to somewhere in the middle, you're just unselecting. So select 1 and 2, and then on one of the shapes, click and drag, and then you're moving 2 at the same time. By that same token, if you selected 2 or 3, now hold down the Control key and drag, now you've got 3 copies, because it's anything that's within the bounding box is what's being copied. I'm going to do that again. If you have more than 1 thing selected, hold down now, again, putting your mouse on top of some solid fill. Hold down the Option or Alt key and drag. And now you've duplicated whatever was in that bounding box. And if I do it again, then I get them again. So as soon as you have 1 thing and you select it all, you can keep repeating it again and again, which many times to make patterns, that's what you want to do. Okay? So now I want everyone to have a mess of shapes because we're just playing around. And what I want you to do is to select more than 1 of them. So I'm going to select this rectangle and Shift and this little rectangle. And then I'm going to hold on my Control key, my Option Alt key, and pull it out. And now I've got a duplicate of those 2 shapes. So by now your artboard should be a mess of shapes. Is that happening?
Yes.
Any questions?
Nope.
No.
Okay. All right. So
I'm not getting the stroke. I mean, it's always just showing the not just the blue line. I don't
Okay,
get the
so-
black around it.
So
Even
maybe,
like,
are you working on this same document that we're working in? Or are you on a blank document that you started?
I started a blank one because the new one, the old one wasn't working.
Okay, so then what's happening is if you're working in a new one, everyone look what's gonna happen, because it's a good demonstration. I'm gonna create a new one, a blank new document. Okay, and right now all I said is blank, you know, create new, and it's gonna take a little.
Oh, no, I just put a new artboard on it.
Oh, okay, then no. Because if you create a new one, actually, let me finish that example. If you do create a new one, that is a good example. So I'm gonna go to create a new one. I'm just there I am. I'm just in a blank new one, right? That's all I want to show you is that this is the only situation in which, see how my properties or my attributes are back to being just white and black? So whatever I said that the tools keep their size and shape, it's keep their size and shape within that document that you just used. Because now I'm just creating a white and black document, okay? So anyway, I just wanted, I don't need you to do that, but I just wanted to show you that it's in here. If my last shape was yellow, then that's the color it's gonna be. And if my last shape was green. Now watch what I'm about to do right now. Look at my screen. Pay attention to my screen for a minute if you're working on your own. I'm gonna demonstrate something. Here, I selected a green and black stroke one, and up there it says green and black stroke. So if I were to make a new one, it would be green and black. But now I'm gonna select this red and yellow one, and thus the little red and yellow attributes show up here. So now if I go and make a new shape, it's gonna be red and yellow. So now it isn't so much what's the last one I did, but what's the last one that I selected? Because the moment I select a shape, that's the attributes get changed. So now I've got red and yellow. When I make a new thing, they'll come out red and yellow. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's about whatever the last attributes were there. When you only have one set, then it's always that color. All right.
If
So-
you're on an artboard and you need more room, how do you make it bigger while you're doing all
Yeah,
of
right now, since we're just messing around, you can just delete a bunch of this stuff, which is possible. Other than that, I'm gonna go ahead and create a new artboard now to leave this mess here. So go ahead and do that. Let's go over to the artboards palette and make one new artboard. Because now I'm gonna move on to a different set of concepts. So,
May I ask a question before you go there? I tried to do a selection of multiple things and then copy it onto a new artboard using the shift, and that didn't work.
so say that again?
I did the multiple selection of objects on the artboard, and then I thought we could do.
No. Hold on.
No.
You're saying objects and artboard in different words in the same selection. And remember, the artboard is not selectable. It's just your background unless you are in the artboard tool. And then you can only work with artboards and not with objects. You cannot work and select artboards and objects at the same time. You only select objects, which is what we do 99% of the time in Illustrator. And the 1% of the time that we're creating or modifying our artboard, we have to actually shift to the artboard tool, work only with the artboard, and then go back to the object and keep working to the selection tool. But that's just a temporary moment that you're working with your artboards. The rest of the time, you cannot touch them or access them. They're just like a basic background, unselectable, unchoosable.
Oh, okay. I didn't ask my question correctly. If I select on the first artboard rather than the white one, if I select multiple objects there, if I remember right, if we had the multiple box that shows the selection, can we do a select shift and paste that onto the second artboard through the shift technique?
With the shift, you select them.
Yeah.
Right? And then
okay.
That's it. That's just for the selection. But to make a copy of them, it's the Alt or Option key, and you can drag it and put it in another artboard. Is that right?
Okay. Got it. Okay. It's an
Yeah, when you select, that's all it is. To copy, you need to hold down now the Control key, and then you can drag it anywhere you want and drop it, and there they show up. So the artboards are indistinct. It doesn't matter if they're in one or in the other. Okay. Is that a question? Does that answer questions for some other people too? Any other question of that kind about selection?
I have one.
Yes.
So, okay, just to be clear, and just in a nutshell, the copy and paste is a select the shape, alt, and then drag, right? But the shift key is where I'm a little, so I wrote down for multiple shapes, click on one,
Yeah.
then shift.
Yeah, so basically the shift situation is something that you can, if you learn this, you can use it with, you know, Word, Excel, Photoshop, whatever. It's just something that happens in the world of computers, Mac or PC, which is that when you want to select more than one thing, and let me just demonstrate it outside of the world of computers so you can, if Illustrator, so you can see what I mean. Here I'm in some other part of the world of computers. If I select this and then this, the first selection disappears, right? So when you want to select more than one, you first select one, then you press the shift key, keep it pressed down, and then you select another one, and then everything in the middle shows up, right? Now,
that's it, yeah.
So it's just how to select more than one thing. So if you click on one, hold down the shift, click on another, and click on another, then that's how you get more. And then when you're done when you're done, if you wanted only the yellow ones, right? Click on one, hold shift, click on the yellow, click on that next yellow one, click on that next yellow one, next yellow one, and next yellow one. Now I can move all the yellows out of the way, and I've separated them from the rest. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I was just not completely clear about that. So
yeah, that's great. This is one that once you learn it, you go, wow, this is so useful for my entire life. So it's a good one to know. Okay. And then when you don't want those anymore, you click on some neutral area, but the neutral area can be outside of the binding box or inside, as long as it's not a shape that works and it disconnects. Okay. Now, here's the thing, that if you want to create, actually, let me just say something else first and then we can move on. Does everyone have a new artboard?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you don't, create a new artboard, because those who have it say yes and the rest are like, oh, I forgot. So go ahead and create a new artboard. Go down to the artboard panel and click on this little new artboard icon, and that brings us to this new artboard. Okay, that way we have some empty space. Now what I want us to do is go back to.
Excuse me. I don't have those figures anymore on my menu side.
These guys here, it's possible that they disappeared, given on, we go up to your Essentials Classic, and if it's still clicked on, if you still have Essentials Classic, then go down and say Reset Essentials Classic, because between one thing and another, you might have had your panels disappear. Okay, so when your panels get messed up and you don't know what's wrong, you go and reset them, and then things kind of pop up. So say, for example, that what might have happened, say that this, something like this happened, and you have stuff that's you know, that's wrong, or you know, you disappeared and you just messed up things all over. You go up to Essentials, reset Essentials, and it kind of goes back to the beginning, so you can kind of recoup and start all over. All right.
So where, now that I've got it up, where's the plus button on the
artboards?
On the artboard?
So
no, where's
down at the bottom, it's not a plus button, it's the little dog-eared shape. Right next to the little trash can, there's one that if you hover over, it's a little
got it.
And that's a new artboard.
Okay. Deanna, I only see a plus sign. I don't see the dog-eared page.
Okay, so you're on a Mac, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the Mac. This has for eons been the shape for new in Photoshop and Illustrator and Adobe. And on a Mac, they just switched it to a plus sign. So I'm glad you said that, because since I don't have the Mac in front of me, I forgot. I don't know why, given that the rest of the Adobe products have forever used that, but I guess, again, they're trying to simplify, and plus is a pretty, like all of the Apple stuff, all of the Mac stuff, when you want to add something new, you have to click a plus sign. So I guess for the Adobe version, they turn it into, of Mac, they turned it into a plus sign. I don't know.
I have a plus sign on the PC.
You do?
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's plus.
Why do I have, that's bizarre.
Hmm.
Oh, you know when, okay, I know what's happening. You know that I got confused because when he told me to find out what version of Illustrator it was, I went to it and I said, oh no, this is 2019. I get it now. What's happening is that the VDI version of Illustrator that we're using is Adobe 2019. It's not 2020. And that's why it still looks like the old one. And for those of you using your own computers, it's a plus sign
Oh.
because the plus sign is the new version. And this one isn't 2020, it's 2019. Because when I said 2019, I think, well, something's wrong because I know we're using 2020, but no. What's happening is that this isn't 2020. That's why mine still looks like an icon like that, and the Mac is beginning to look like a plus sign. All right.
May I ask a question, Diana?
Yes.
Let's see, if I selected a couple of objects on my first, say, artboard 1, I can go ahead and do the Control-C, and then I can do a Control-V. Sometimes they don't land up on a new artboard. But if I just move those onto a new artboard pre-existing, then will they print, or do I have to actually create a brand new artboard for them?
All right, so let me explain. When you select and actually to duplicate them, which was he's saying, you do a copy paste, Control-C, Control-V is the shortcuts for copy paste. So if you don't know that shortcut, it's the same as saying edit, copy. See how it's written there? It tells me that it's a Control-C. If you do Control-C, so you do a copy, right? And then, so you select it and you do a copy. When you paste, which is Control-V, they're gonna paste in the middle of whatever you're in. So if you notice that paste and you see my artboard, they pasted centered. See that?
Yes.
So if I am over here right now and I say paste, they show up in the center of whatever area I'm looking in. And so when you copy paste, you don't have a control of where they land. All you know is they'll be pointing up in the center of their area. So if instead of copying and pasting, you hold the Alt and you drag, then you get to say, I want them to paste right there. But if you are doing a paste, they'll just pop in the center and then you need to drag them. And yes, you can drag them in and out of any artboard. That doesn't matter. Artboard
As long as you're in the artboard, they'll print though?
As long as they're in the artboard. If you put them out here, they're not going to print. It needs to be on an artboard. And if you put them in like that, then only these little bits of them will print, not that part of it, okay? So the whole entire thing that you want to print has to be inside of your artboard. All right, any other, these are all great questions. Any other question of just handling objects and artboards and shapes before we start making new shapes?
No. No.
Okay. Now, when you select multiple objects through Shift and Select, can you put them in a group? Okay. So Leland's asking something that I'm going to start talking about right now, but give me a second here before I talk about groups, because I want to show you what time is it? We lost some time.
11:35.
Okay. We wasted, quite a bit of time with the whole dropping there, so trying to target my timing. Let me show you one more thing about shapes, and then after that, I'll let you keep practicing on creating new shapes yourselves by going to and using the video. But I'm going to go ahead and choose a new shape that we haven't used yet, which is the star tool. A couple of you have been using it. I think Joni said she was using the star tool. But let me show you something about the star tool. When you select the star tool, I'm going to change the attributes. Up until now, we've changed the attributes after we make a shape. But now I selected the star tool shape. Now I'm going to change the attributes by going over here and choosing, for example, a blue fill. And I'm going to choose I'm trying to use very contrasty colors so you really can see, and a green stroke, right? So now I'm going to make that stroke a bit thinner. I'm going to make it a 1-point stroke, okay? Maybe 2 so you can see it better. I don't usually use strokes on my objects in general, but here I'm trying to teach you, you know, different things. And so you can change the size of the stroke, the color of the fill, etc. Now, as long as I don't click on anything else first, my star, I'm going to click and drag, is going to be blue with a very small green stroke. Hard to see, right? Maybe I should make that stroke bigger just for you guys to trust that, yes, there is a stroke on that. See there? Now, I'm going to go ahead and make it a bit smaller just so you now trust me that there is a stroke. Let me go back to maybe 5 points. So that's my star. And if I now make another star, there it is. I can make it smaller or bigger or really tiny. And they're all the same star, right? Now, if I click and drag and move my mouse around before I let go, I can make it rotate into whatever position I want. And so now this is the same star, but at least it's a bit rotated, and then I let go. And now I'm stuck with the star being the way it is. Okay, now go ahead and do that. Make a few different stars. And then I'm going to show you something neat about the stars. And other shapes too, but it's the most fun one is to show it with a star. Okay, so hopefully you've all made 2 to 5 different stars, right? Now,
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and have us get rid of them, but not by deleting them, because I want to keep my star tool in my hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo my action. So I just made about 6 stars. So I'm going to hold down the control key, and it's the command key on a Mac. And then I'm going to keep it held down. And then I'm going to tap the Z one time, and that undoes the last action. And then I'm going to tap the Z again, and the Z and the Z. So this is the undo, the shortcut for the undo command. And every time I tap the Z, as long as my command or control key is held down, I'll be undoing, undoing, undoing until I get back to the first star. Okay? So this isn't the same as deleting. It needs to be exactly when you're making it, because you can only undo what you just made. Anything that I did, you know, an hour ago, the green circles, I can't undo my way to get rid of them. I would have to undo everything I did for the last hour. But I can undo what I just did instead of deleting, and that's what I just did. So I'm down to 1 star again, all right? Because now I'm going to show you something really cool about the stars. Everything in Illustrator can be modified, not everything, 99% of everything in Illustrator can be modified depending on what tools you have in your hand and what keys you touch in your keyboard. So you basically have to have one hand on your mouse and one hand on your keyboard the whole time. Because now I am going to start drawing a star, just like the other one, but I'm not going to let go yet. Meaning this one still isn't baked, right? I'm making it. I don't know exactly what shape it'll have. I'm not sure. And I keep it unformed because I'm not letting go of my mouse yet. Does that make sense? With your mouse still down, now I can do certain things to change the shape. So look, I just pressed. Actually, let me do this one. I'm going to go to, if you go down to your keyboard, go ahead and in your keyboard, look and see where you have the arrow keys, the ones that are usually next to the numbers pad. And look what's going to happen. I'm going to start pressing the upper key, and whoa, what am I doing? Each time I do this, what's happening to my shape?
Increasing.
Both sides.
I'm getting more tips to my stars, yeah? So I'm going up, up, upper key. Now I'm like, no, that's too many tips. So I'm going to go down, 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 arrow key, and I'm actually going to get rid of tips. So up arrow key, down arrow key. Now, this is important. I have not yet let go of my mouse. My mouse is still allowing me to modify the shape of this star, okay? When I am done adding as many little tips as I want and making it as big or as small as I want by moving my mouse in and out, then I let go. And there we go. That's the baked in shape of my star. I can't now add another tip or take another tip away. Once you let go of your mouse, that's the shape of your star. And now the next star that I start drawing starts with that many tips. And if I don't let go, then now I can add more tips to it. And I keep tapping, and I can make many more tips and make it much smaller. And then I let go. Okay. Or the next one that I make, I can decide that this one I want to have very few little tips again. So then I go down. So basically what I'm doing is I am touching the up and bottom arrow keys to make my star have many different numbers of tips. And the last one that I made is the one that when I try to make a new one, it's going to come out like that one. Now to move these around, I couldn't do this if I had my start tool. What did I do? I went back to my selection tool. I hit the V so that I can then move them around. Okay? So has everyone made a couple of different stars with a couple of different amounts of tips, I guess, star tips?
What is the,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is this, what is it that you held down to increase more point tips on the star?
Okay, so on your keyboard, and I don't know if I'm showing it over here, if you have an extended keyboard, then it's these 4 arrows here. It's the up and the down one. Now, if you have a key like one of these, because it's a Mac keyboard, then down here you have the little set of up and down arrow keys. So depending on what kind of keyboard you have, you can have another version that's not even one of these two. That would be where you'd find the up and down and left and right arrow keys. So
I'm sorry, I missed, you said like this and like this, but I don't know what the like this was.
oh, you're not seeing, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I forget that I'm sharing the screen and you're not seeing it. So
I'm not seeing your keyboard.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a minute. I was showing my
Okay, that's my keyboard. That's my keyboard.
This one, okay. So then down here on the bottom left of your screen, bottom right of your screen, you have the 4 little arrows. And if you have one of these, you know, big old keys, then this is the numbers pad, and then they're down here. And these are the up and
okay,
down.
I got it working. I figured it out.
Fabulous.
I
have a question too. So I'm okay when I create a star. I'm okay to change the amount of points on it. But if I wanted to go back to an existing star and change the points on it, that's where I'm having trouble. So I go to I get a bounding box, but I can't.
Stop. You can't. That's the point I was making.
Okay, good. I get it.
There's once you let go of your mouse, you've baked in your star to as many tips as you can have. Now, there's other things I'm going to teach you how to modify shapes, but to start out with a star with more or less tips, it needs to happen in this creation moment. You can't modify it. So once you let go of your mouse, if you don't like it, you delete it and you drag a new one out, and then you add more or less tips to it, but you can't modify the one that's there. I'm going to share my screen again.
Thank you.
Here we go. And this one is going to not be changeable. This one is not going to be changeable, okay? Now, the reason you're seeing a lot of green instead of blue there, if I approach this one here, is because since I had such a big stroke, what's happening is that the tips aren't tips anymore. See how this one still has a sharp tip? But here, what I've got is such a fat stroke, it was 5 points, that the tip doesn't get to be tippy anymore. See that? And this is the fill, but the tips are so small that the stroke is basically giving it its color, which is an interesting effect. But if you really wanted these stars to be tippy, and you don't see that until you approach, then what you need to do is make your stroke much tinier. Or actually, if the stroke, just get rid of it, okay? And just say that you want no stroke. Now, to have no stroke, you would have to go ahead and not do it here. Here, all you can do is get a big fat stroke or a small thin stroke. But if you don't want stroke, Your only choice is to go to where you put the stroke in a color and tend to go over to this little first choice, which is the no color, and click on that. And that gives you no stroke. See how this shape is crossed out now? So now you have no stroke, thus no size of a stroke to change into. You just don't have a stroke. You just have the shape, and then you get the pure little tips. See that? So you either have a stroke or you don't, and you choose that. If this were to be your area that you make those choices in, then you click over here. And this is where you say no stroke, okay? If you put on a stroke, let's say a pink stroke, then it appears. Then once you have a stroke, you can change it to be fatter, so fat that it takes over, or tiny, like that. But if you don't want a stroke, you have to click and say no color to my stroke. All right? All right, so I am going to, since I'm moving on one side from a Mac, one side from a PC, I keep trying to do a command on the PC and a control on the Mac, and then my brain is like, ah. But anyway, so here we have 3 shapes that we can't modify anymore. But guess what? There's still more we can do to our stars. So I'm going to go with my V key and move these around a little bit. In fact, I'm going to get rid of this one that's very similar to that one, just so that I can have a bit more space, because I'm going to show you how to do something else with your stars. I'm going to go back to my star tool. Now, the last one I made was a very simple star with only a few tips, so I'm going to pull out one of those again. Now watch my screen. I'm not letting go again. I'm still in the middle of modifying my star. And I'm going to add a few more tips to it now, as we did before. But now, what if when I make it bigger or smaller, see how the tips and the center are proportional to each other. If I now want a different proportion, I can do, sorry, that's not what I was trying to do. It's the PC. I can do this. See how suddenly I'm getting my tips to be much longer or thinner? Or there we go. Let's go back. See how different that star looks now? I'm going to do that again. I start pulling it out because now that's the one that came in. And what I am doing is I am modifying the relationship of that center circle and the tips length. And what I'm doing is I'm holding down the command for the Mac or control key for the PC. So now hold down your control key if you're on a PC or on a VDI. And then when you drag it in and out you need to, you start making it and then hold down the control key. And then as you pull out, you get longer star tips. As you pull in, you get short, stubby star tips. Does that make sense? In and out. And when you have the star tips that are as stubby as you want them, or as long and tippy as you want them, you let go. You can also now add more tips while you're still in this mode, and then you let go. And that's another way to shape your stars. So remember that what I said is that when you're creating the shapes, if you click and drag, different things happen. In the midst of creating them, if you click on your upper or lower arrow keys, things happen. If you click on your control key, things happen. So basically, until you let go of your mouse, you can keep modifying your shape. And even though it was just one tool, the star shape, you've made tons of different tools, tons of different stars at the same time, which is pretty cool, isn't it?
Yes.
This is
very
cool for the star. If you do it with other shapes, it also works, but this is the most, the one that is the most visible and obviously cool. But if you do this with a polygon shape, for example, and I start pulling out a polygon, I can add edges to my polygon until suddenly it's an hectagon or a whatever agon. And if not, with a down key, I can make it go down until finally it's actually a square, because I took so many sides of it away. And take one more square out, and guess what I have now? A triangle, which I don't have a triangle shape. Did you notice? But that's how you make a triangle. you make a polygon and you add edges or get rid of enough of them until you're left with a triangle. So that's the polygon shape, where you can add or take away with the up or down arrow as many sides to that polygon as you want. And you end up with a triangle or an octagon or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Okay, so go ahead and go get the polygon tool and go ahead and make yourself a little triangle by getting rid of sides. Now, the confusing part is that the next time that I use the polygon tool and try to draw something, it'll come out as a triangle and you'll be like, wait a minute. And so you'll have to remember that now you have to go up, 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 up to get an actual polygon to appear, because it'll be left in the same shape and amount of stars as it was, sides as it was when you first created it. Okay? So now play around a little bit with those up and down arrow keys and control keys. Some of you might have this problem. No one's saying it right now, but in class, lots of people have this problem where if the last star you created was kind of one of these weird, long, spider thin, you might have added so many tips to it. And let me show you. I'm adding so many because I'm kind of holding down right now my upper key and it keeps adding and adding and adding. See, it's going so fast. It's because I'm leaning with my whole body on to the upper arrow key. When I let go, wow, this is kind of crazy, right? Look at, I'm gonna approach it a bit and look at what I did there. It's an interesting effect, right? But the next time you try to draw something, it's like, how do I get out of it? Because you made so many that it feels like you can't get rid of that. Well, if you remember that what you need to do is kind of now sit and hang forever on the lower down key, then you hold it down and down and down and down until you're finally into a place where it's more logical. But you still have that proportion that's kind of weird. And so in order to get this proportion out of the way to get back to a regular star, what tool did we use? What key did we use to get the longer or shorter star tips? What was it?
Control.
It was the control. So now if I hold down the control key, I can, in order to make it fatter again, I have to first go down and make these really, really small. Then I let down the control key and then I can pull out again and start making more of a regular star again, okay? So you kind of have to undo whatever it is that you had done for it to kind of go back to being a regular key. Or you can also change by clicking and having to change the numbers here. So you can make the radius smaller and the amount of tips bigger. So if I do this and make bazillions, bazillions, and bazillions and bazillions of tips, right? And I don't want to sit and fix that. You can just click, and over here it looks like I have 140 points. I can just bring it back down here to, I just want, 11 points. And then you say, okay, and phew, you got a more reasonable set of tools again. Does that make sense? Because sometimes it can go ahead and go crazy. And so the way to reset that tool is to just, for once, just click, put the numbers in to make it a more reasonable tool, and then you're done. And now this one, if I were to take the stroke out of it, I might be able to see a ton of tips, and it might be a bit more interesting like that. See how it has a ton of tips, and again, I want to select it. And so you have to be careful with strokes where sometimes they deform your shape, okay? But now that's how I got a shape with lots of little rays, which is pretty cool. And it's a star with tons of tips and no stroke. So look at all the different shapes that we managed to make with that one star shape, star tool, okay? There's other things that you can modify. I don't want to spend too much more time, but just so you're aware, different, I'm going to just show you this really quickly and then let you guys explore it on your own, because I want to move on to other questions. And Leland was asking me about groups. I want to show you that too. But just really quickly, I'm going to go back. So just watch this piece. This is just demo time. I'm going to go to one of these tools that was in in the open-ended tools. And for example, the rectangular grid tool, I'm going to change the colors now so that we have a whole different relationship. So I'm going to make a stroke, and the stroke is going to be always things that are opposite to each other so that you can really see them. Okay, so here's a rectangle tool, the grid tool. And if I let go, depending on where I let go, that's kind of going to be boom. That's my grid, right? Now, what if I didn't want the grid to have that many rows and columns? What if I pull it out and I want more rows or more columns? So before I let go, just like with a star, I can start going up arrow, up arrow, up arrow, and I'm adding more rows. Or down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, and I'm taking away rows. Okay, up and down for rows. And then what if I want to add or take away columns? So just watch this. Now it's the side arrows, right or left, right? Give me more rows, more columns, and left arrow. So now it's the 4, top, bottom, up, down, that I can modify the shape of this grid until I have kind of what I want, and then I let go. Okay, so I'm just showing this for you to know that there's other tools that if you ever want to add more or less of, just consider that these kind of shortcuts keep working with other tools as well. But I'm not going to spend much more time on the grid tool or whatever. I just wanted to show you this part of it, that these kind of shortcuts keep going, and there's more. And when I have more time in class, I tend to show you a few more. But now I'm more interested in beginning to work on multiple shapes and creating your own shapes, not just the ones that exist in the pre-made shapes, okay? So before we leave, any other questions right now regarding some of the creation of shapes with different attributes and modifying them on the fly?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
And I know you'll get into this so eventually, but I imagine you can put text in any of these shapes, or like in those grid boxes. Can you put text eventually in these?
Yes, as opposed to other programs, like I think you had mentioned, was it you, Kathy, who said that you used Canva and things like that?
No.
Someone else was saying it. And there's other programs where you'll just grab a shape, or even Word. If you make a shape in Word and then you can put text on top of it, and they that text stays with the shape. Here, text and shapes are separate things. So now, yes, I can write some text, and if I happen to make it go and sit on top of the star, there would be text inside on top of that star, but they wouldn't go together. You'd have to select text and star and go together. So.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll probably get to that.
Wait a minute, there's one other option that you're going to learn, which is you can fill a shape with text, and the text will fill into that shape. So I can put text inside of this star and have it kind of write itself inside of that shape or stuff like that. So those are things I'm going to show you, not today, but I'm going to be showing you. But other than that,
thank you.
I have 2 separate objects. One is the text, like if this were the text and it goes on top of that object, and then you carry both together, then the text stays on top of his object, and that's how it would work. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So no, that was a great question. Any other question right now about just general? Okay. Oh, I forgot. Here's an example. Here you have text, and here you have an object. Now, if I were to want to put that text to be inside the object, then I could do that. But oh, guess what we just discovered? That this object was made after the text, right? So now the text is behind it. So what would be the solution for that? If we wanted the text to be on top, I would have to open my layers.
Back.
Right? I would have to open my layers, and I would have to go and find this shape, and I would then have to go and put it. I forgot that I had taken all this down. I would have to go find this shape, and it's easy. This is. It's the one that has that little thing, and then I'll go put it down until I find it lower than the text. Okay. And I'm not going to have this example, but just so you can see, then I can make it a bit bigger and the whole thing's, or I can make the text smaller for it to fit, whichever. But now that looks like it's on it, but it's still truly 2 different things. And you can still,
okay, cool.
They're not like kind of stuck to each other. You can keep choosing where you put it. So yeah, good question. Thanks for that question. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these 2 grid tools, because now, oh, by the way, what I just did is something I wanted to teach you. So instead of just doing it, let me show you. Let me move this down. Here's the thing. I told you that to select two different things, you have to click on one, shift, and click on the other one, right? That's what I've taught you up until now. But there's a faster way to select more than one thing. And that's, I kind of call it casting a net. And see my mouse over here? If I just kind of click and drag in a blank space, see how I'm making kind of like a little row of dots and then it goes away? Consider that this is like a little net. And if I go ahead and I throw this net over an object, I select it. If I throw this net over two objects, I select both of them. So that might sometimes be easier. Now here's the cool thing. You don't need to select the whole entire set of two objects. You can just select a little bit of an object. See how only a teensy bit is being covered? And that's enough to select the whole shape. A little bit of this, and that selects the whole shape. So if I wanted to grab these two things, and I just did like that, that's enough to have selected both shapes. So when we go to a more crowded area, if I want to select these two shapes, it's going to be, you know, these two that are together, it's easy. I just do like that, and I've selected two shapes. But what if I wanted to select this one and that one? Well, it's kind of hard, but because when I cannot start when on a shape. If I start on a shape, I move the shape. I need to click on some neutral area. So if I click on this neutral area and try to just get these top and bottom ones, what's happening is that I'm also touching this one. See how I'm touching that one by a little bit? So then all three got selected, right? So if you're gonna do that, you need to maybe think, okay, I'm gonna click over here and drag down to click only in these two, and then only those two get selected. But this won't work if what you need is this one plus that one, because there's no way to drag a net between these two without touching all the rest. So this only works when things are easy to just kind of grab, like those two, or these 7, or, you know, those 8. But it won't work if I need to select that plus that. To do that, I need to do the select, shift, select, because then that will, it looks like there's more, but really I've only selected 2. See that? Okay, so now go ahead and practice casting your little net amongst all of these different objects to see how you can easily select these 3, you know, by doing that. Or you can easily select this entire radio by grabbing from here to here. And then you can move the entire radio around, okay? So practice that, and then this is gonna lead us into the whole objects groups conversation. But for now, these are just elements that we are picking up at the same time together because we're selecting them all at the same time. Does that make sense?
I'm so sorry, but I didn't see the first keystroke. I got interrupted and I changed to cast the net exactly.
No keystroke. You need to be on the move key, the selection key, the black selection key.
Okay.
And then you just grab any empty area and click and drag, and that's what kind of allows you to grab stuff. So it's just
okay, good. I got
it. Drag. So yeah, thanks for asking that question because it helps me repeat it to everyone else. Nothing, no other shortcut, nothing. It's just, if you were to just click and drag and there's nothing in there, that little net would disappear. Nothing would happen. But if you do that in the vicinity of something, then you are grabbing that thing and then you can go out and move it, okay?
Got it. Fun.
Now, this radio, all this time where I had this text, you guys still have the text down there. This radio has looked like a little box. But the thing is, if I move this one, see how there's a bunch of other stuff in there? It's just that it was being hidden because of the stacks situation. So I can either go ahead and find it and then drag it down by hand, which is what I prefer. Or what you could also do is you could have done the whole object, arrange, send to back, which with less control over it, as long as you know it has to go all the way to the back, has allowed it to go far enough that now I'm seeing all the rest of those shapes. Remember that we were going, if I click on this, something is selecting and I don't know what it is. It's because it was there. It was always there. It was just hiding. So all these shapes were not for nothing. But if you do this, I could see a little selection. I was going, huh, right? So if you see a shape, it's there. What's happening is that something bigger is hiding it. In this case, this one is above this one. If I drag this down there, suddenly I see the black dots. If I drag it down there, now I begin to see other things. Or if I drag it all the way to the bottom, oh, sorry, there we go, all the way to the bottom, then I see everything, okay? The reason this matters is because if you ever find like you've lost things because something is hiding it, what you need to do is open this up, open your layers and swirl this open, and then you'll be able to find everything. And if it's here, click on this and it'll show up, even if it's underneath, okay? Because before, when it was underneath, you couldn't see it. But this way, and this is why it's important to know how to use this, because not everything is selectable by clicking on it. For example, if I click on this thing, I would only click on green. I would never be able to click on the things that are underneath it. So the way to click and select the things that are underneath them is by clicking on this and then seeing it, on this and then seeing it. But what if I want to select more than one? Because here again, if I click on this, I only select one at a time. But again, if I were to do my click, shift, click, click, and click, now I have been able to choose all 4 of them, and then I could choose to maybe drag those up here and have them appear in a different case. If I select all 4 of them like that, let me select more than like all of this stuff that's down there, then I get to everything that's part of that radio. There you go. Select, 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 select. Then I can see how they're all suddenly appearing, right? And then I can go ahead and click on one of these guys and actually drag all that stuff out of the way. But I couldn't have reached them before because they were behind, okay? So that's the value of learning how to use the little layers panel so that you can access the things. A, you can make things go different stack level easier, and B, you can access things that are hidden behind stuff because you use this little blue tiny arrow to select them and to see them, okay? Go ahead and play around with this radio a little bit to see all of these things that I've been showing you, and then when you're done, go ahead and drag your green box behind it so that it actually looks like a radio again. Play around with it a little bit, and then when you're done, we're gonna start using this as an example to start understanding about grouping. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and when I know that we only have about 50 more minutes for class, but since the whole thing got disconnected, and then I give you guys a little 5-minute break, basically we haven't had a long break, and I didn't have a break at all because I was trying to reconnect. So I need to take a little 2-minute break, but I can take a little longer one if we need it. So I'm gonna give you guys a 5-minute break to go take care of, as I need to, certain necessities like using the toilet, and come back. So you guys can go and come back, or you can keep working on these shapes while I go and come back, okay?
Okay.
Good.
Yeah. All good.
Okay, I'm back, but I know that not everyone is back yet. I'm just going to take a second to open up the LinkedIn Learning because I want to oh, no, not that. Let's sign into this again. SVCC. Pipeline. I'm going back through SVCC, remember, to go into LinkedIn, and I just want to choose another, show you the other chapters that I want you guys to view over the week. Here we go. You don't have to do this right now yourselves. Just watch what you need to do for, for homework. So I had asked you to go through the chapters 1 and 2, and then the selection and the shape and line drawing tools, which was chapter 4. Okay, and then the next one was 5, that one, and 6, which is strokes. Those two I'd like you to look at. So basically color, chapter 5. Okay, and 6, which is strokes. Now, the last one, the 7, more on selections, that's actually kind of a little bit of what we're doing right now. There's more than what we're doing right now, so you can see that and know a little bit more about selecting. But the one that I really, really care about you doing is the color one, okay? I'm gonna be talking a lot about color in the future, but if you start by viewing this, you'll already have a good idea. Strokes is interesting, just to know more about what strokes can do. You know, it's not crucial, it's good. Selections, we're gonna be learning how to select other things like that. That's fine, but I'll be teaching you that too. But the color I want you to do, Sue. And then this one, aligning, distributing, and stacking. Stacking is the part that we're doing right now. It's the whole moving them up and down, and so this will be showing you things like what I've been showing you. But it also, this aligning is being able to show you with a quick button how to make everything align on the same line at the same time, or go down at the different times. So all of this is interesting if you want to go ahead and do it, but it's not crucial. 9 groups. This is what we're going to be doing today. Okay, so 9 groups. This is what we're going to start in right now. So if by next week you go and do chapter 9 groups, it'll review what we're doing right now, and chapter 5, which is color. You can do all the rest, that's awesome. But the ones that I want you to review for sure is 5 and 9, okay? Colors and groups. If you have time, because you're just twiddling your fingers instead of watching some other episode of something useless, then go ahead and do the rest of these videos. But for now, I want you guys to do those 2 for sure, okay? All right, so chapters 5 and 9 are a homework. All right, any questions about that before we keep going with Illustrator? Any questions about the LinkedIn videos or how to access them? Ask me after class. When everyone's left, you can stay a little bit after that, and I'll show you again how to access them and all of that. That way we don't use everyone's time, okay?
Got it.
All right. And I'm sure someone out there hasn't done it because they weren't able to read them or access them or whatever. If that's you, when the class is over, go ahead and everyone signing out. You tell me and stay behind, and I'll show you more about that. Or any other person who's having a particular individual problem with their computer that doesn't make sense talking here in class with their Illustrator, then when everyone else signs out, stay on, and I can help you with that. All right? Okay. let's go back to the beginning. And I've ended up staying in this one file instead of moving on to others, because what happened is that I'm not sure that everyone got to download all of those. But I want us to now know that when we finish with this file, for those of you who are in VDI, I don't want to have us to download everything every day. So about, you know, there was like 6 of you guys on VDI. So if you all can hang out a little bit longer, I'm going to show you how to save these things that we downloaded back so that you don't lose them, and the work that we've done, and that way you can keep working on them next week versus what happened this time that you couldn't. Okay. All right. So now I want to approach the radio part. Okay, so the easiest way to approach the radio part would be to select one piece of it and then do Control plus 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 or Command plus plus plus, because then for sure it'll zoom into that radio and not into some other artboard. Remember we did that at the beginning? Okay.
Deanna,
Yes?
I selected in the layers, but I just have the blue outlines. Is there something else I'm supposed to be doing?
When you select them, sorry, where's the radios? Down here at the bottom. When you select with this little button, you get the little outlines. It just means that you kind of grabbed hold of them. After that, what I had asked was if you wanted to do more than one, you had to hold down the shift and click the next one and then click the next one. And that was the equivalent of selecting more than one thing that we did here. We did shift, click, shift. We're just doing shift, click, little circle that gives us all the parts and pieces. So that's
mine isn't showing the fill part. I don't know what I have not clicked.
Not showing you the fill part.
Yeah,
because okay. So you still have your radio up. If you still have it like that, is what you mean, right? You're seeing the outlines like that.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So that was the second step, which is we had to get all of the little parts and pieces. Okay, which is doing this, and then what I had asked you to do was to actually grab the background.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And drag it down. So this was just testing for you to how to select things. That's
okay.
All. But then if you said you want to grab just the background, my request was to go up here, and when you distinguish which one is the background, to grab it and drag it all the way to the very bottom so that it goes there, or go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. And that would, when you know something needs to go all the way to the back, you know that it doesn't need to be somewhere in the middle, then that's kind of a quick way to say that send to back. Okay.
Deanna?
The shortcut for send to back would be up here. If you click on this, no, that's not the shortcut. Where's the shortcut for sending to back? There's a shortcut for sending to back, and I don't know right now which one it is. I'm not seeing it. So just go up to the menu. There was one way to align them, but I'm not seeing it. Is it over here? These are the aligning.
It's on the toolbar, Arrange, Quick Actions.
Show me again.
I think it's on the to the right on Arrange, all the way down with your arrow.
Oh, okay. This new properties panel. Thank you. I forget that the whole point is that things that you do the most, they put them on this panel, but since it's new for me, I kind of forget. So it says quick actions. So if you click on arrange, then you can quickly go to send back, send to front, whatever, instead of having to go to the menus. Okay. Thank you for showing me that. I still have to get accustomed to to this piece of it, which is cool, because instead of having to know which one of these menus has whatever the many billion things you can do, basically what they do is they just say that whatever it is that you are, sorry, I changed. Anything you think you can need with what you've selected appears over here. So it's easier than having to learn all your panels. I kind of find, I'm torn about that, because I find that it's easier to use Illustrator, right? But then the problem is that if this doesn't appear, you don't know what the options are, versus when you had to know your menus, you kind of knew all the possibilities. So anyway, it's good and bad. All right. So does everyone have a radio that looks like a radio now because you've moved the panel to the back? The green
Yes.
panel to the back?
Mine looks like that. It still has some blue dots around some of the stuff, but most of
If
it's
it
all
has blue
still.
dots, it's because something's selected. Just click with your mouse somewhere in the white area and all your selections will disappear. Did that work?
Yeah, they are perfect.
Okay.
Got it.
Great. All right. So now looking over here at all of these guys, it's kind of like, wow, isn't it a bit of a mess to find anything? Not only did we have all the things that came already, plus all the circles that we made, or I don't know how many you made because that's different and stuff, then the radio stuff, then at the very top you have all of these stars. It's just, oh my God, how can you find anything here, right? On top of that, if I need to move this radio around, I can't just grab it and move it because then I'm just moving a piece of it. To move this radio around, I actually, oh, I just noticed that I had, that I'm missing on it. To move this radio around, I have to go ahead and make sure that I grab everything. And what if when I do that, I forgot one piece, and when I move it, oh look, I left this little dot behind, right? So there has to be a better way, and there is. Once you have a group of shapes that all together make a new thing, such as this radio, then what you can do is you can create a group out of it. So watch. Right now, if I move this, so I have to select this, plus shift this, plus this. It's going to be hard to collect everything and make a mess. So what I just taught you, which is going from here to here, is the best way to get the entire radio. Now I'd be leaving the text behind, but that gives me all the radio. At this point, the best thing we can do right now is to make a group out of it. Now, once again, it's hard to select all these pieces if you don't know how to select from this neutral little casting a net, drag it until you're sure you have everything, because you don't know what else is under there that you might have missed or not missed, right? So once you grab everything, now watch. I want you to watch two different things. First, look at my panel over here with all my layers. The selection is everything that has a dot on, okay? That's all the stuff that I just selected. And I selected it just by dragging my net. Once again, if I click away, lose my selection, the dots disappear. If I click and drag over everything, all that stuff now got selected, see? Okay, now I'm going to go up to Object, Group. Now we do this so much that it's good to know the shortcut, which is Control G or Command G. It's an easy one to remember, right? Because it's group. But right now I'm going to just hit group. Now watch, don't do this piece, watch demo, because I want you guys to look over here the moment I make a group. I'm going to say Object, Group. Where did all those dots go? See how suddenly something shifted here? Nothing shifted here. Nothing seems to have happened. But in my tools, in my layers, I'm sorry, I now have this new thing. This has a new little arrow over there. And what I've just done is I've created a group. Let me make this bigger so you can actually see that this word there says group. See that? And this group is now my entire radio. So look what happens. If I click on the radio now, I can drag it all over the place because this has become one element, one shape. And if I want to get to the individual parts of this shape, so once again, if I were to select just this, I've got the whole group. So let's see what that's all about. If I now open this little triangle and drag down, there are inside of this group all the parts and pieces of this radio. They just got put together into a group, which I can now open and close. And over here, I can just move this around as one piece right now. And the only time I need to get to some individual part, maybe I want to get to just the heart, then I would have to open, expand, we call it, instead of open, expand and collapse. And then I can go and find just the heart. And then I can still go in there and select individually just the heart, for example. See, there it is. And I can still move this out of the way now. All right. But I would have to be inside of that group. Otherwise, when I select the group from now on, it all moves as one thing. And that's the way we combine a whole bunch of different shapes and then keep them. And then I could call this the radio. So I can double click on this group and call it radio, right? And so this now in my whole document becomes the radio. Before I demonstrate anything else, any questions about that?
Nope.
Neat.
Yep.
It's neat.
Yeah. So here we go. Instead of having bazillions of things here under in my layer, I can do that to a lot more of these things. I can go ahead and grab these three, select them all together, and then make a group. Object, group. And when I do that, if I look down here now, that little guy that I just made here is my group of those three layers, and so on and so forth. I happen to have quite a few of these. I can make each one of these into a group. So now instead of using the object group, I'm just going to do the shortcuts, Control G, and there we go. Another new group appeared. And I'm going to select these three and say Control G. And now another little group appeared. So basically what's happening is that I'm able to make things be more handleable. I'm going to grab all my stars. I'm going to do like this and this and this, and I've grabbed all my stars and my blue shapes. And I'm going to be Control G, and boom, there's all my stars. Okay? So basically, I'm finding ways to control my information. I'm going to grab all of these miscellaneous shapes that we did at the beginning. And I'm going to say Control G, or again, Object Group, and I'm grouped them. So now nothing has changed on my art, but look at how much easier and how much more handleable my layers have become. Because now I can see each individual part. Now I could say that I've named them all, it would be easier. Here I haven't named them all, right? But I can start naming them and call this one 3 color squares, whatever, the original one, right? And then you can begin to distinguish. This is when I double click in there and I call this one is my stars. Okay, so I know that I've done a lot without letting you guys do it, but I'm just kind of showing you this is my sample ellipses, right? And then it's much easier to understand what's on my screen. And if I want to select all of my ellipses at the same time, I just click on that, and there you go. Now I can move all of them at the same time because they're grouped. Does that make sense?
I just have a question.
Yes.
When you grab the stars and you got them all looped around, you had part of the 3 boxes.
Yeah.
And they did they come with the stars in?
No, because if I now move my stars, see how those don't come? So thank you for asking that, because I wanted to show you what I did, and I'm glad you caught on to the fact because I did it quickly. I'm going to ungroup these stars again, which is as simple as grouping them. I select the group, and I'm going to go up to Object, and I'm going to ungroup them, or Shift Control G, or Shift Command G if it's the PC Mac, right? So now I have ungrouped them. What that means is that now they're moving around independently again. So I wanted to select all these stars, but if I did this, those 3 would have been selected, right?
Right.
So how did I get around it? I did a combination of the casting the net and the shift. I cast the net up until I couldn't anymore, because then I would have selected those 3 stars, see? But by doing that, I left all of my stars, including the one that you only see the tip of right there. That one's also going to be selected, right? Because it's inside of that. But what it didn't do is grab this one. So by doing this, I can select most of my stars, But I know because I was watching that this one didn't get selected. In fact, there you go. See how I'm proving to you that one didn't get selected. So for that one, I now pressed shift and clicked on it. And so now I added it to the group.
Oh, okay.
Added it to the selection. So remember, you always click shift. So if I wanted to do these 4, oh, this is a group now. If I wanted to do these 3 plus that one, I do those 3, then I do shift and that one, then I'm moving those 3 plus that 1. Does that make sense? So that's what I did. I selectively grabbed. The quickest way is to grab all of those, and then I did shift and grab. And then I made the command G that turned them into a group, and I was able to do that without messing up with those 3. Okay? So
Great.
guys, thank you for asking that. Sometimes I just do things and I forget. But right now, doing that, I was able to isolate these little guys on their own, this whole stuff on their own, and this whole thing on their own, because I was able to selectively cast a big net and then just individually click with shift the little bits that wouldn't have been able to be grouped. So go ahead and group all your stuff now into similar bits and pieces. And that way, if you want to move anything right now, you can move it independently. Now, when you're done with that, I'm going to show you one more thing about groups within groups. But for now, go ahead and grab similar seeming items.
Deanna, I have a question. I don't know why I can't get it to move. So I can group them and make a group.
Uh-huh.
But then.
And now if you want to move them, you need to go back and select one of them, which selects everything. And then you click again and you.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, I must have been grabbing in the white space somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's always important, that the space in between is still just space.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Shape and it moves. Okay. Any questions about that? Have you all got some groups going?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So it's truly important to me that when I say any questions, did you group it? If you really, for any reason, didn't get the groups or not, so please ask me. There's so many things that depend in the future on understanding groups that, and I can't see this time if you got it or not. I can only have you guys share it with me, and you sharing with me takes a lot of time. So if you share with me, it's because you're having an issue that you can't handle. Other than that, if it's going and I say, is it happening? That's fine. But if it's not going, you have to say, nope, I didn't get that, because I assure you that if, these are the basic foundational blocks of how to work with Illustrator. We're going to be grouping things a lot later on and stuff like that. So I need you guys to truly say yes or no to this. Okay. So is there any more questions about how to make a group? Please ask me now before I move on.
How do I delete something from a group? I'm sorry.
Yep. Steve, what's up?
Oh, how do I get rid of something in a group?
Okay. So right now, based on what you already know, the only way to do it is to select and ungroup and then reselect the correct group. Or hold on. Or, and it's a little bit more advanced of an answer, say that I go to all my groups of stars, right? And I expand the collapsed group. Then I can say, well, I don't really want this one star to be in it, right? So I say that this one star, which is, I'm going to turn it on and off, which is that one down there. Let's make it one that's more obvious. This middle one. If I don't want this one to be in the group, I can see this one. Then I can grab this layer now, and I can actually drag it out and put it somewhere else. And see how by dragging it out, now it's not part of the group. So now when I go move this group, it all moves except for that one because it's not part of my group anymore. So if you know how to handle these layers comfortably, then you can add things to that group again. And so I'll grab this and just drop it in there, and there it's part of the group again. And now it moves with everything, okay? So that's just kind of depends on how comfortable you are with this, whether you use this to put them in and out, or you basically have to ungroup and regroup the right thing. Does that make sense, that answer to everyone?
Yes.
This is something that you won't see in usual in all the Illustrator courses until it's more advanced, but I find it so useful that I try to teach this to you from the very beginning, because any concept that I ever want to teach you, I go back to, if you know how to play around with these layers, you know how to do a lot of the stuff that otherwise you have to just do by little commands and stuff, and you don't really know what's happening, versus this way you really know what's happening all the time. Okay. I think someone else was trying to ask a question too. Dot, were you trying to ask me something?
No, I think I got it. It's interesting. The one time I did a group,
yep.
It took everything away except what I had picked. I don't know how that happened.
Okay.
But this next time it worked.
All right. I'm just curious because Reagan just tried to join the group again, and I said yes from this one computer, but she wasn't accepted, and I should have said yes from the host computer, and she's not in, so I don't know what's happening. Anyway, okay. She's ones that, oh no, there you are. Reagan, you're here. I'm back. Oh, good. I just didn't see you pop in yet. All right. Okay. Where are we? Groups. Okay. Reagan, when did you drop out? Did you get the whole groups part or not? I'm not sure when you popped out. So let me know. Say yay or nay to groups. Say yes or no. Got groups. Laptop died. Got it. Okay. Yeah, my Wi-Fi died, then I dropped out. Your laptop dies, we drop out. These things happen, right? From now we know. If anyone just gets dropped or something happens to me, everyone just wait it out and we'll connect again as soon as possible. All right. Now, the point of groups is that even when you look at this set of groups here, when they're collapsed, there's still a whole bunch of groups, and there's going to be a time when there's going to be bazillions of groups. And I'm gonna see if I can upload some other of the samples that I like to show, where I have multiple groups that I noticed aren't uploaded into the Google Drive. Let me make myself a note, because I have some samples that kind of are easier to talk to about when you just see them. So I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna write myself down to upload the art. Okay. Certain things are hard to explain unless I just show them. So I'm gonna do some more uploading of files. All right. So here's the thing. I can have groups within a group. What do I mean by that? Right now, I clicked on the radio and it's one thing, and the text is another thing. And I'm gonna undo that, Command Z, Command Z. But originally, these were designed where this kind of goes with that in that particular order. And I would really not have to select a group, shift, select the text every time I move them. But yet the text wasn't really part of the radio shape, which it didn't make sense to group them. But now what I can do is say, okay, this radio is a group, this text is on its own. Now I want to create a new group, which is text plus radio. So it's one group and another object, and all of it creates a new shape, a new group. So look, this one here is the radio group. See how it selects the radio? And this one here was the text. See how it selects the text? Now, when you did this, you might have done the text inside of the radio. I'm not sure if you managed to isolate it well enough or not. But I left them separate. So now I'm going to grab one of the groups, hold shift, grab the other one. So now it's one new thing. See how here I have both selected. And now I'm going to create a new group. Again, by doing either Control G or Object Group. Again, nothing here seems to happen that's very mind-blowing. But over here, now I have one group that if I expand, holds the other two groups. It holds the radio and the text. So now when I go and click on this thing, the whole thing moves as one. Okay? So it's a group within a group. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, I could have done that as a group within a group to these two things, but I could do it to other things too. Sometimes you have like a flower. So you make all the petals. That's a group. Then you make a leaf and all the leaves. That's another group with a stem. Then the stem and the leaves are a group and the petals are another group. And then you put them together into another group. And so basically you can move groups within groups so that you can change the shape, position the petals separately without moving the leaves or things like that. But ultimately you want the flower to stick together to move it around. And then you have a main group that holds the petals and the leaves and the stems together, and that's called flower. And then you move the whole flower around easily. Does that make sense? But had you put together all of the elements of that flower, then every time you grab a petal and you move a petal, you separate it from its other petals. So you want to have a subgroup of petals and a subgroup of stem and leaves inside of the big group of flowers. Any questions about that? All right, so we're going to do something similar with this radio here. I'm going to go ahead and Control plus so that I can have a bigger view of this. And I want to be able to say that I can move the components of this radio separately, for example, from the green background of it. This doesn't make as much sense. Maybe just these things, because it's not really a flower. These kind of things have to stay where they stay, but I don't have the flower sample here. So in this case, if I go into the group that's my radio, I still have a whole bunch of different things in here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I want to select the whole group, right? I don't want to select the whole group, so I need to go in here and I'm going to select these two dark green shapes right there, plus the two hearts, which I happen to know are these two little white ones. And now that means that these pieces are what I selected, right? So I'm going to make this into a subgroup with the Command G and see how inside of this radio now, this is a subgroup of its own. So whenever I click on this, I now can move that independently from the rest. Or I'm going to put these three little guys, lines, they should always go together because I don't want them to lose that distance connection. So then I group these little guys. Okay, so now I have a group within a group. I can click here and I'm selecting just the antennas. And now, sorry, the antennas are a little bit harder because it's a stroke. You need to touch the stroke to move it. There's nothing in between. So I have to actually put my mouse on a stroke and then I get to move just the little, not the antenna, the waves, the sound waves together. Does that make sense? So those are groups within a group, okay? Now, I might want to make sure that this handle stays attached to the body, that these two, and the antenna itself, that all of these stay attached to themselves. So then I can go and start finding all those little bits and pieces in and of their own. But notice that whenever I try to grab just the handle, now I can't. Because what happens when I grab the handle? The whole group gets selected, right? So there has to be a way to get inside of that group because I made a great comfortable group, which is great to move it in around. But what if I don't want this radio to be green? I just want this radio to be, you know, pink. It's got hearts, it's going to be a Valentine's design, and I want it to be pink. Well, the moment I try to select this background, everything is selecting. And here's one of the negatives of a group, that if I now try to change the color of this group, look what happens when I go to the color settings. It doesn't have a color anymore because I have more than one color, so it can't tell me. If I click this arrow, it shows me all my colors, but it can't tell me what color I'm using because I'm actually using yellow and dark green and light green in this design. So if I say, well, but what I wanted this, and I select the background, and I want it to be pink, everything turned pink. All the colors in my group turned pink. So that's not going to work, is it? Because I only wanted the body of my radio to turn pink. I'm going to go ahead and say undo. So then I'm back to having my original colors. So the advantages of having things grouped in order to move them creates the disadvantage that when I want to select only one thing, it's not as easy because everything is all selected at once. So there's a couple of solutions to this. The one that might be more obvious that you already know is, well, then go in and select only that one.
Mm-hmm.
By knowing how to use your layers, you select that one only by using this little, they call it the target, you know, that little circle. Then you see its color. Then you make only that guy pink. That's one solution, right? Now I'm going to undo that. If you know how to use this, that's a great solution. That's actually a good solution. But sometimes you don't have your layers open and you don't have, didn't do very, good job of having everything organized. So when you open this up, you're like, oh my God, which one of this was the radio? And how do I find, is this the radio? No. Was that the radio? No. Was that, oh, that was the radio. Okay, let me open this. And where's the background? I don't know. Is that the background? So unless you're really clear of what all your layers are, that sometimes is a bit more of a complicated issue to discover what this dot is instead of that dot, or this dot is instead of that dot. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So there is another solution. And you're going to have to watch for this one, because this one visually can get a little bit complicated, but when you do it, it's very simple to do. And it's called entering isolation mode. So what entering isolation mode is, I'm going to isolate this green body from the rest. And how I do it, it only works if you have a group. So if you don't have a group, there's no isolation mode to be had. You click and you select it. But now, when you click and you select something, it all gets chosen. So now instead, you need to double click. So watch. I'm going to put my mouse here and I'm going to double click on the background. Now, what happened, and let me collapse all these layers so you can really see what happened when I did that. I'm going to escape. Look what happens when I double click on a group. And I'm going to get a bit smaller so you can see this is going to really show it to you better. If I double click on something that's a group, what happened to the rest of my file? What happened to the rest of my artboards? And if you didn't notice, let me do it once again. Double click. Can you see something happening to the whole rest of my artboards?
Right out.
They all kind of grayed out. Not grayed out, but kind of ghosted out. They became pale. Does that make sense? Yeah. I'm going to do it again so you guys pay attention. See how these are the bright original colors? When I double click a group, everything that's not in that group kind of went into this, like, I'm going to become pale and ghosted out mode. This is called isolation mode. I have isolated this group only from the rest. But now I still have a group within that, and if I were to turn it pink, it would still be everything. So now I need to double click again. Now I am inside of the group of radio, and then I double click again, and now I only have that background selected. So basically I double click, double click, double click until I get to the shape I want.
Yeah.
Then I can go in and make this thing pink or purple. And then I've only changed that pink. But now I'm still in isolation mode, so how do I get out of it? I hit the escape key, and now I have managed to make that background pink. So I'm going to undo that again.
Oh.
And it's really quick. All you do is double click, double click, double click, double click. Basically, you double click your way down until you're finally there. And if you have one group or 10 groups, you might have to double click 10 times if it's groups within groups. When you get there, you make your change. So I'm going to make it blue. And then I get out of that mode by hitting escape, and I've been able to change only that part of that group. Now, on a simple group like this one, only one double click is necessary because I double click, and there it is, or two double clicks, one to enter the group and one to enter one. and I change that one to yellow. Well, I make a color I haven't used, the purple. Now, inside of that group, I want to change this one. So now I go and double click there and double click and double click, and now it's been isolated. So you basically double click your way in and out of things. Double click, double click, double click, double click, double click. Enough times, keep double clicking, because if you don't really know what's inside, just keep double clicking until it isolates. And you make that into a different color. And by the time you're done and you escape, you've managed to isolate the bits and pieces of the group, even though when you move it's still one group. Just by double clicking away, you've been able to access that final place where you got the one little bit. Okay? This is really much easier than going in and finding your levels, finding the stack, changing the one bit, discovering which of all these circles is that circle, because they all look the same. So double click, double click, double click gets you into isolating, and that's why it's called isolation mode. You isolate one bit, one object from the rest of them. Okay, so go ahead and keep practicing that and ask me your questions. Any questions about that? Is it working for you all?
Yeah.
Okay, so this, which seems like one of the most, easiest things to do, you just double click away, tends to be a big place of contention for a lot of people, because it's really hard to groups and then know how to work with them independently. So just remember, double click your way all the way in to whatever you need, and then you can even change its shape. Like you can do whatever you want independently. You can move it outside into that group, like in the side of that group, you moved it to a different place. Whereas, so I'm going to make it green, blue, and I'm going to move it to a different place. And then I'm going to escape, and there you go. That's still a group. See, if I move it, it's still a group, but I've not only moved and changed, not only have I changed the color, but I've already changed the size, and I've changed the position of one of the layers with respect to the others. Okay? So now, here's what I want to do next. Oh, one more thing, just really quickly. These shapes that we made, that I just kind of had you make and nothing else, these shapes already came in as groups. These shapes, if I hadn't shown you that yet because you didn't know what a group was, but see how up here, this shape is composed of a ton of little lines. That's all it is. It just came made for you, but really, this is just a line. And that's another line. And so when you pulled out this radial tool shape, rectangular grid tool, all it did was create another group full of lines. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now that you understand, before you might not paid attention to the fact that you already had a couple of little thingies there, not know what they were. Now you know that's the group of that shape. This is the group of those stars. This is the group of those little shapes, and this is a group of the circles, etc., etc. And it's much easier to handle. And it's even easier if you open it up and give them names. Then you know perfectly well that these are the stars, and these are the ellipses, and these are whatever you start shaping. And then you can handle all your material much better. All right.
Anna?
Yes.
I have two questions. One is, I know Command Z goes back, but what if you want to redo something?
I don't remember the PC, so go to edit.
I'm not PC, I'm on Mac.
On the Mac, okay, so redo is Shift Control Z, so it would be Shift Command Z.
Okay, and then.
But if you don't know, because sometimes these things change between Mac and PC, you go and you find the actual command, which is always under edit, and then you look, because over here, these two aren't. The Control Z is undo in just about every program that I know under the sun. But the redo changes if it's Word or if it's Excel or if it's Photoshop or it's Illustrator. The redo tends to have different keystrokes. So that's where you would learn for whatever program you're in what the redo is. Because, for example, Command Y is what it's like in the Office programs or Control, so that's Control Z is undo everywhere. It's universal, but the redo is a little bit different.
Yeah. And then what was the quicker way to just send it back?
when you have this panel open, and say I were to grab, so I'm gonna have to double click until I get into that yellow thing. So I've isolated it. Then I can go down here to arrange and send to back, and it's disappeared. Now I'm gonna undo that to leave it up front. But again, the isolation mode there helped us not just to color it, but to isolate it to send it back, just by double click until you get deep into it. And then you use the arrange. But see how the thing about this thing that I like and don't like is see how the arrange now isn't there? And you're like, well, where was the arrange? Well, these things only appear if you need them. Since nothing is selected, clearly there's nothing to arrange. So then you don't find it here.
Yeah.
But if you select something, then there's a chance that you need to arrange it. So then the arrange shows up. So this properties panel is awesome, but it's also confusing because nothing's there until you need it, which is great. But then if you don't have something selected, you know that over there should be your arrange and it's not there, then it gets confusing. You just need to always know that it'll only show you that which is available for you to do. And so if you have nothing selected, there's nothing to arrange, then it won't show you the arrange. Then you need to know that the arrange is up here under object arrange. Okay. All right.
So then you can also, Deanna, you can also just go up to the window, can't you? The across the top. And that shows arrange at the very top.
Actually, that probably won't show arrange, is it? No, because that's a tool inside of the panel.
You can go higher up on your little arrow right there. Go back to window.
Window,
and then go up. You can. There's something above align. Keep going. Keep going.
I don't know.
It's weird because mine shows it. I'm in VDI. Keep going. Yeah, keep going.
Way up. Okay, there, arrange. Oh, no, okay, that's why, because this is different. This is an array. This has to do with your windows, cascading and floating windows, which I can't even demonstrate right now because we only have one open. This has to do with how many windows you have open. It's a different arrange. Like if I have 3 files open, which file do I want to pop in or out? So it's a different arrange mode.
Right, okay, perfect. I saw mine popped right up and I thought that was associated with it. So.
No, that's fine. Okay, so guys, it's 1 p.m. I want to have you guys hang out a little bit because if you want to save this file, I need to show you what to do.
Yeah.
And then if you had a specific question on your own, then you needed to answer now. If you have your own Illustrator, you can just save and there it is. What you've just done is saved on your downloads folder and that's it. If you have no other questions, you can, keep playing, go do your tutorials, hang out and listen to what I'm saying. But for the 6 of you who have VDI, the 6 of you who are still here who have VDI, I believe one of you guys had to leave, but the rest of you guys, if you just save this right now, it's gonna go into your VDI download save and it's gonna disappear when you wanna access it again. So we need to do one more step. First, we need to save it. So let's go to File and Save. That's fine. You need to do that first. The file needs to be saved. And let's go ahead and be done with Illustrator so we can quit Illustrator. And remember, we go for you Mac people, you go to, to the name and quit. But we're on a PC. If you're in VDI, you're on a PC. So how you close a program on a PC, you have to go up to the far right and click on the X. But be careful, Mac people, not the top X. That's your whole VDI situation. We want to keep that open because we need to go and still save these files. Just the one inside of the gray Illustrator X. Close that. And there's data on the clipboard. And that's whenever you remember something by saying copy, that computer remembers it in the memory and it's called the clipboard. So we don't need it to stay remembering the thing that we copied. So we can just say clear clipboard and that'll help the computer work faster. Now, if you want to keep that in your memory for some reason, then you say keep. But usually you want to clear a clipboard out of Illustrator because it uses a lot of memory. Okay, so now, if you remember that if you still have your Chrome minimized here from before, that's fine. But I'm going to assume you don't, so we're going to say that we're going to go in there again. First of all, just to be clear, I'm just showing you this piece. Right now, this downloads that's here that we've been working on and that has today's date, copy of changing order, that's the one that we've been using now. See how now it says 1 p.m.? The rest are still saying 9:20, 9:30 because that's when I downloaded them, but this is the one that I've been changing. But it's in this downloads folder, which is my virtual downloads folder. And the moment I turn off this virtual session and disconnect, this downloads will empty out and these files won't be here anymore. So if I want this because I want to keep what I've done, some of you don't want to keep it, but I'm going to just teach you how, because as we make more things, you might want to keep it. So I'm trying to make sure that you all know how to do it. Then we need to move it on to the Google Drive of our pipeline thing, okay? So you don't need to be seeing this. That was just for me to show you that you're inside of the virtual computer. So what you need to do is you need to open Google again. Now I already have it open, so when I do this, it's going to open something that I already have. That if you don't have it open, then go all the way here and go back into our pipeline Google Drive. So we did that by sbcc.edu, pipeline. I'm already signed in because I was already connected, but if not, you have to do the username and password, student non-credit, and Google Drive, okay? Now, at this point, if you tried to go to shared with me and open up that same folder, you can't save into it. If you do, well, I guess you can save in. Can you guys save into it? I know that you can download stuff, but I don't know that you can add stuff. But the whole point is I don't want you guys to save into that one. You would have to change its name or it'll override the one that's there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm wondering now, I gave you access to view and to download. Can you add things to that folder? I don't know. I'll have to wonder about that. But I don't want you to do that anyway. What I want you to do is in your drive, stay in your drive. Don't go to shared with me, because this is people giving you access to things. It's not you. Yours is my drive, right? So go to my drive. And then what you can do is you can create a new folder, and call it my Illustrator files, or my Illustrator class files, or whatever you want to call it, right? My Illustrator class file, my work, my file, whatever you want. Just say create. Okay. And so then you will have only one. I have so many folders. You will have one. So you go into that, and in here, you can drag all the files that you are using. So basically, and if you don't want to make a new folder, you just want to put them in your drive loosely, that's fine too. If you don't have much stuff in your drive, see, I'm assuming that you have a lot of stuff in your drive because I have a lot of stuff in my drive. But if you don't have a lot of stuff in your drive, then you can just put them in here and that's all. But I made you make a folder so that you'd be more organized. Folder or no folder, how do we get those files in here? Okay, so one way is to just drag them in, which you people are very accustomed to if you're on a Mac. But I'm gonna have to go find that file to drag it in here. So I'm making a little bit of space, right? And, or I guess I could also upload. What's easier? You know, since you're not PC people, I could also upload. I think this is easier. Instead of dragging in what you need to be the Explorer, and if you're not PC people, that's hard. Everyone knows how to right click. So inside of our Illustrator files, go ahead and do right click and say upload files. That'll be easier. Upload files. Before we had right clicked and downloaded. Go to your downloads, which we had left them, and then copy of changing order. This is the one that you made, right? So once again, I'm going to cancel that. Once you get into your Google Drive from Student Not Credit, Google Drive, stay in my drive, make a new folder if you want to for Illustrator files, and then right click, upload files, and you have to go find them. And we had downloaded them, so they're still living in the downloads files. The only one we changed is this one. So go the changing order. We didn't work on the others today. Say open or double click, and it uploads, and there it is. Now, this is the one that you've changed, and I can tell because it's a different color. If you're not sure if it's the one that you changed, you can make it by changing its name. So you can right click on it and say rename and call it my changing order, or you know, whatever you want to call it, just so you know that it's yours and it's the one that you made. So call it Diana's changing order, right? Or something like that. And say, okay, that way you know that this isn't the beginning class file, it's actually the one that you created. And we could have done a save as or something like that, but at this point, all that matters is that you have saved the one that with the changes. When we come back next week, or if you start working on this tomorrow, once you close the VDI and open up again, you will not have those files there, but you will have to come and get it from your Google Drive. Okay? Does that make sense? Are you stuck somewhere? Do you have a question around this process? No questions? Do you want me to repeat anything? Is it all done? You got it in the right place? Yeah. Okay, then.
Good.
Yeah. Did you try to say something, Steve? No.
Oh, no, I was just saying, no, good.
Okay. All right. I had said that I was gonna show you, I was gonna upload some more files. I took note, and then I was gonna show you how to put the things up into the VDI virtual Google now. That's all I had written down that I wanted to do after one. Any other questions that you have on more of a, you know, what's happening on your computer with Illustrator or something that you want me to help you with?
I have a weird question, but it doesn't have to do with the.
Wait a minute, Kathy. So if you don't have any more questions, if you want to hang out to see what my answers are to Kathy, because it's useful to learn, go ahead. But other than that, you don't need to hang out anymore. Go and have your break, your lunch, your whatever. Hang out only if you have more questions. And
Deanna, I just had a question about the classes coming up.
Oh, yes.
Could you send an email out or anything about what classes you were going to be teaching?
Yeah. I usually do that. I need to put it all together. I forgot that we're actually, sign up is in 2 days for you guys. Since I'm not in school anymore. So thank you for reminding me that is to send out my general email as to what I'm going to sign, what I'm teaching. And I need to confirm which one of the Macs or whatever I'm going to be teaching in summer one. So that reminds me that I need to talk to Emma. So thank you for that reminder, Dot.
Good, great, thanks. Bye. Have a good weekend.
Okay. All right. So I know Kathy was asking me something, but anything else like that? That's a quick answer before you leave. Okay. So then if you're out of here. But other than that, Illustrator questions, Kathy, yeah, what's up?
Well, and maybe this is just a weird thought I had, maybe not even a question. So I imagine every graphic designer designs based on their individual preferences. But like for me, not being a designer, when I look at the screen, like, where do I begin? With shapes? Do I put color in next? Do I put, what are the best practices about that? Something like that is what I'm kind of curious about.
It's a great question, and it's a question that is a bit too soon to answer, because here's what's happening. Here's what's happening. I am teaching you how to handle the program, and part of that is how you begin to work with the basic shapes, right? You will see that with these basic shapes, we can create a lot of stuff. Now, this radio looks like this blocky little radio, and it's not like it's necessarily such an exciting little radio, but as I start showing you other stuff, knowing how to handle this whole thing that I've been teaching the last couple of days, which is grouping, ungrouping, is the basics. Because without that, you can't even start designing your own thing. But once you know how to handle these tools, Then some people will decide that they start with basic shapes and they put together all these little panoramas that you saw there, the files, those little things with basic shapes. But more importantly, most people use basic shapes as the beginning access to create more complicated shapes. And so you'll be learning that with me. But many people aren't the kind of people that raise up a pencil and start drawing and draw this perfect tomato. Many people have to start with some of the tools that Illustrator gives us and transform it into that great tomato. So there's two ways. If you are the kind of person who, like my son, he grabs the pen, he draws something and it looks like a perfect tomato. That's great. I'm not that person. I don't do it that way. So I need other tools. So it depends on who you are and your capability, your raw capabilities or learning things, what you will do. Some people will sketch something on a piece of paper and they will scan it in, they will trace it, and I'm going to teach you how to do that. And then with that thing that you sketched in Illustrator, then you modify it, fill it with color. So a lot of the cartoons or stuff that people used to draw with ink and watercolor, the comics, the Sunday comics or things like that, they're not done by hand anymore. At most, someone might sketch it out, but then at that point, they digitize that sketch, you put it in Illustrator, and then you fill it with color, you do that. So how you create a shape depends on who you are as an artist. You start outside and you put it in and you finish digitizing, or you start from the very beginning in digital mode. Maybe you do things in Photoshop and then you bring them in Illustrator to get some sharp lines over them. There's like a myriad of, it's like saying, how do you use oil painting? Well, technically you pour out oil onto a palette, put a brush and start painting, but we're all going to get different results out of that, right? So right now I'm teaching you the tools. I'm teaching you how to open that tube of color and pour it out to be able to paint. Like that's the kind of stuff I'm doing right now. What you do with those tools, once I show you how to handle them, then it's more up to you and your capabilities and your interest and your shapes, right? Because some people want to make things that look realistic. Some people just want to work on stark logos. Some people want to work on very, like the little art pieces that we're working on right now. These sample files are very mechanical, square, rectangle, triangle, flat colors, no shape to them. Others want to put, shading and things to them. So one thing that I don't have here that I haven't done for this class, I'm trying to see the differences in my online class and this one, is many times I show samples of things that can be done. So one of the things I reminded myself today in class, and I'm going to keep doing that, is to keep uploading some more samples so that I can show you a bit more of the width and breadth of what you can get done with an Illustrator program to kind of answer you a little bit like that. Most of the, I'm not an,
thank you.
The word Illustrator is weird because in real life, it depicts a person who is an illustrator, and an illustrator is someone who is different than a graphic designer, who is different than a photographer. An illustrator is the person who kind of picks up a pen and pencil and makes something happen, and it's the cover of a magazine or something like that. It's the tomato that's on the cans of tomato, the national brand of tomatoes. But when the name Illustrator is the program, you can use it with different capabilities. And I am not the kind of person who could pick up the pencil and make a great tomato. So you have to separate yourself from the name of the program and decide that it can do so many things, including creating web pages, that it's what you want to do that you learn how to do, that then you just create, right? If you're going to create a layout for a web page, you're going to start in a different place than if you're trying to draw a tree, a realistic tree with flowers, right? But all of it can be done. But I like answering it more than just a quick answer, because that way you begin to get an idea of the breadth, width of it, and how you can't do any of that until you know how to group and ungroup and can change colors and move in and out, which is the beginnings of Illustrator. So cool. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Anything else? It's all working. Your VDIs are fine. Your tutorials are fine. All right. I didn't write down. I gave you the chapter. I remember that I said chapter 9. What was the first chapter? Was it 5?
9.
5 and 9. Because I'm going to send out a reminder. And
look at 6 and 7.
What's that?
I think look at 6 and 7 at least.
Yeah, you can do 6 and 7 and 8, by the way, and it's great, and it's more of everything we've been doing. But since these are long chapters, target 5 and 9 for sure, and then do as many others as you want between 0 and 9. It's all great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Could I ask you, could you, whenever you're emailing me, and it's fine to do pipeline, but I don't go in there very often. Are you always doing my Gmail just in case?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Because of this is non-credit, any other teacher would not be allowed, credit teachers are allowed to use personal emails. We non-credit people know that students don't tend to go to their pipeline. So everything I'm emailing to both your personal and your pipeline, which means that if you're good about checking your pipeline, you're getting it twice, which might be like a, oh, bummer, but it's so that I catch everyone, right?
There's no excuse to do the homework because we're being reminded twice.
Yeah. So some of you are like, oh, I got it twice. It's not, I'm not sending it twice to you. I'm sending it to your 2 different emails. But the thing is that if you didn't give the school the correct personal email, which was happening to some people, then you're only getting it in pipeline. And then you're telling me I'm not getting your emails, because if you don't check pipeline, the personal email that some of you don't give us, if you don't give us a personal email, I can't send it to you. But if you gave me one that's old or they typed it in wrong or something like that, then it's not getting to you. So if you haven't gotten any of my emails, for sure you got the pipeline one if you're going to pipeline. But if not, then stay behind and I can show you how to correctly enter right now online. You can correctly enter the email that you check most for you to keep getting these emails. That said, you're not going to be invaded by emails by school if you use your pipeline. If you're a non-credit student, you just get teachers that you are in their classes emails, or you get things from Emma saying, hey guys, sign up. This is the way to sign up. Other than that, it's not a ton of email. Yeah. Except for now, where we're in such a strange environment that the college is sending a lot of reminders out to students, such as the college is closed, the college is open, come and get free food, you know, a whole bunch of things like that. And so, yeah, you're getting more of those pipeline emails right now. But other than that, normal space or circumstances, you don't get a ton of emails in pipeline, so it doesn't make sense to check it all the time. That's why we keep going to your personal one.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
weekend.
See you in a week.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Bye.